In the remote expanse of Bavaria, about 70 kilometers north of Munich, lay the isolated Hinterkaifeck farm. On the fateful evening of March 31st, 1922, what began as an ordinary day for the Gruber family turned into a nightmare. Over the course of one horrifying night, a killer wielding a mattock, an ordinary agricultural tool, would change their lives forever. The backdrop of early 20th century rural Germany was one of hard work, superstition, and tight-knit community life. Yet in this isolated setting, the echoes of modern forensic science had not yet reached, and an unknown assailant left behind little evidence. This historical context is crucial. Not only does it explain why the investigation was so difficult, but it also adds to the chilling uncertainty that still surrounds the case today. At the center of this tragedy was not an abstract idea of evil, but a real, close-knit family and the farm that sustained them. The Hinterkaifeck farm, built around 1863, stood as a symbol of rural endurance, a modest timber and stone structure, with a steep, snow-shedding roof divided into living quarters, storage rooms, and stables. Isolated from nearby communities, this farmhouse was both a haven and ultimately a prison for its inhabitants. Visual. Transition to animated illustrations or gentle reenactments of the farmhouse layout, highlighting its outbuildings and the surrounding fields. The family that called this place home comprised several generations of the Gruber clan. At the head was Andreas Gruber, a 63-year-old farmer whose life had been defined by the relentless rhythm of rural labor. Known by some accounts as a stern and solitary man, Andreas was the backbone of the household and the local community, managing the daily demands of a working farm in an unforgiving environment. Alongside him was his wife, Cecilia Gruber, aged 72. In an era when a woman's work was measured in quiet resilience, Cecilia maintained the household with unwavering dedication. Her role extended beyond domestic chores. It was she who ensured that the rhythms of daily life continued, even as dark rumors and unexplained events began to seep into the fabric of their existence. And there was their daughter, Victoria-Gabriel, a 35-year-old widow whose life had been irrevocably altered by loss. Left to shoulder the responsibilities of both child-rearing and farm work, Victoria's daily struggle was compounded by the burden of whispered secrets. Local gossip even hinted at a dark and disturbing family secret, rumors of incest born out of the mysterious circumstances surrounding her child, Joseph's paternity. On Victoria's part, these allegations were as painful as they were scandalous, casting a long shadow over her attempts to rebuild her life after the loss of her husband. Victoria's two young children, a daughter also named Cecilia, just 7 years old, and her toddler Joseph, represented both hope and the fragility of innocence in an unforgiving world. Their tender ages made the ensuing tragedy all the more harrowing, as a family's future was cruelly snatched away in a single, horrific night. Rounding out the household was the new maid, Maria Baumgartner, aged 44. Having arrived on the farm only that day, she was an outsider stepping into a family with deep roots and hidden sorrows. Her presence was meant to provide relief in the daily labor, yet, tragically, she would soon become one of the victims, a silent witness to the unfolding horror. The Hinterkaifeck farm itself was more than just a backdrop. It was a living participant in the tale. Its isolation in the vast Bavarian countryside fostered both a sense of security and vulnerability. The very features that sustained farm life, a narrow access road, the protective embrace of dense woods, and the tradition-laden construction, also rendered the property an ideal stage for a crime that could go unnoticed for days. In this remote setting, family life filled with routines and traditions, became a microcosm of both human resilience and hidden despair. In essence, the family of Hinterkaifeck was a portrait of rural existence in early 20th century Germany, a blend of endurance, isolation, and an undercurrent of mystery. Their everyday struggles, secrets, and deep connections to the land provide the human context that makes this unsolved murder not just a cold case, but a poignant story of lost lives and shattered hopes. In the quiet months leading up to that fateful night at Hinterkaifeck, the family began to notice that their once peaceful home was no longer as secure as it once appeared. A series of unexplained events started to puncture the calm of everyday life, a prelude to the horror that was to come. 6 months before the murders, the family's long-serving maid abruptly quit her job. Her reason was as chilling as it was vague. She claimed to have heard strange, unearthly sounds echoing from the attic. In a house where every creak was usually explained by the passing of time and the chill of winter, her sudden departure sent ripples of unease through the household. Then came an incident that would add a concrete layer to the mounting mystery. One day, Andreas Gruber found a newspaper on the farm, a newspaper he did not recall buying, and one to which none of the locals subscribed. The presence of this foreign paper, inexplicably left on the doorstep, raised more questions than answers. Was it a warning? A deliberate message from someone lurking in the shadows of their isolation? As if these oddities were not enough, a series of fresh footprints began to appear in the snow. These were no ordinary tracks. The footprints started at the edge of the dense forest that bordered the property and led directly to a broken door. Lock in the farm's machine room, a door that had once secured tools and equipment vital to the family's livelihood. The precise origin and the abrupt end of these tracks ignited local speculation. Some believed they were the work of a wandering traveler, but the sheer peculiarity of the tracks soon suggested something far more sinister. Each of these unsettling signs, the departing maid, the mysterious newspaper, and the inexplicable footprints, added to a growing atmosphere of dread. In a time and place where superstition ran high and isolation magnified every small anomaly, these events were more than mere coincidences. They were omens, dark harbingers of the unspeakable. Violence that was soon to shatter the fragile normalcy of life at Hinterkaifeck. These early disturbances, though seemingly minor at first, began to erode the sense of security that the Gruber family had long taken for granted. They foreshadowed a night of terror that would not only claim 6 lives but also leave behind a mystery that continues to confound investigators and haunt the collective memory of the region. Every creak, every stray footprint, and every misplaced item was a silent precursor to the violent storm that was to engulf Hinterkaifeck, an ominous reminder that in the isolated depths of the Bavarian countryside, the boundary between the natural and the supernatural can be all too thin. March 31st, 1922. The day the new maid, Maria Baumgartner, arrived at Hinterkaifeck. Unbeknownst to her, this would be her first and final day. As dusk turned to darkness, the killer made their move. One by one, the family members were lured away to the barn under the guise of routine or simple familiarity. First, the elderly Andreas, his wife, their daughter, and even the young granddaughter were led into the barn, where each was struck down with swift, brutal blows from the mattock. But the carnage did not stop there. Later, the murderer advanced. into the house itself, attacking the remaining two, little Joseph sleeping in his bassinet and Maria in her bedchamber. What is perhaps even more chilling is that after these unspeakable acts, the killer did not flee. Instead, the murderer remained at the scene for days, tending to the animals, starting fires in the fireplace, and even eating from the family's stores of food. This unsettling behavior suggests a deranged familiarity with the victim's daily life, as if the killer were not merely a transient intruder, but someone who understood every corner of this isolated farm. Four days after the heinous act on April 4th, an unsettling silence at Hinterkaifeck prompted local tradesmen, coffee sellers, a mechanic, and eventually neighbors to investigate the abandoned farm. Initially, the usual sounds of daily life were absent. The animals were inexplicably fed, the smoke rising steadily from the fireplace, and yet no human activity could be detected. As these locals approached the property, they encountered an eerie stillness, doors that were locked, yet a gate to the machine house swung open, hinting at a disturbance. Eventually, their exploration led to a chilling discovery: the bodies of the Gruber family and the maid, brutally arranged in both the barn and the house. In the barn, 4 bodies were found stacked atop one another and hastily covered with boards and hay, while inside the house, the infant Josef and the maid, Maria Baumgartner, were discovered in their beds. The ensuing investigation, led by Inspector Georg Gruber, was immediately hampered by the fact that curious onlookers had already tampered with the scene. Some had moved items or even consumed food from the untouched stores, thereby contaminating potential evidence. Autopsies conducted by court physician Johann Baptist Aumüller confirmed that the victims had suffered multiple blows from a mattock, with findings indicating that the youngest victim had clutched tufts of her own hair, a grim sign that she had been alive for hours after the initial assault. Despite thorough interrogations of over 100 suspects and meticulous, albeit rudimentary, forensic work, the discovery of intact money and the clear indication that the perpetrator had remained on the premises, tending to the animals, and even cooking meals, compounded the mystery and ultimately led to a trail that would grow cold, leaving behind a legacy of unanswered questions and one of Germany's most notorious unsolved crimes. The Hinterkaifeck Murders. Theories and suspects. The 1922 slaughter of 6 family members at a remote Bavarian farm remains unsolved, with theories ranging from intimate grudges to professional killings. Lorenz Schlittenbauer, a neighbor and former lover of victim Gruber-Gabriel, is the prime suspect due to his eerie proximity to the crime. He discovered the bodies, used a key that had vanished before the murders, and referenced frozen ground hindering burial, a detail only the killer would know. Schlittenbauer, rumored to be the biological father of Victoria's son Joseph, born during her marriage to Karl Gabriel, faced local accusations of eliminating the family to evade financial obligations, though he successfully sued defamers and died uncharged in 1941. Another theory centers on Karl Gabriel, Victoria's husband, who was declared dead in WWI but never conclusively identified. Speculation suggests Karl returned, enraged by Victoria and her father Andreas's incestuous relationship. A 1914 court conviction revealed their affair, with Josef, likely their child, and massacred the family. Post-WRT Soviet prisoners even claimed a German officer matching Karl's description confessed to the murders, though no physical evidence confirms this. The incest scandal itself fueled theories of a vendetta, as locals or relatives disgusted by the family's secret may have retaliated. A 2007 police review concluded the killings arose from a personal, emotional conflict aligning with this motive. Alternately, the Gump brothers, Adolf and Anton, members of the ultranationalist Free Corps Oberland, were implicated in 1951 when their sister accused them on her deathbed. Adolf, linked to farm massacres in Poland, and Anton, released for lack of evidence, fit the profile of organized attackers but lack direct ties to the victims. Internationally, Paul Mueller, a German-American serial killer who fled to Germany after US axe murders, was proposed by historian Bill James as a match due to similarities in weapon choice, a mattock, and targeting isolated farms. Closer to home, laborers Anton and Karl Bichler were named by a former maid for their knowledge of the farm's layout, alongside Georg Siegel, who admitted carving the handle of the suspected murder weapon. Siegel and the Bichlers reportedly made ominous remarks pre-massacre, with Anton stating the family ought to be dead. Crucially, the killers lingered for days post-crime, feeding livestock and eating in the home, suggesting deep familiarity with the victims. Investigative failures, fingerprints uncollected, evidence overlooked, and the farm's 1923 demolition doomed the case. Eerily, witnesses reported footsteps in the attic and strangers' footprints days before the murders, while a 1927 newspaper article claimed a man confessed to the crime at midnight, vanishing before police arrived. Closed in 1955 with no convictions, the case endures as a labyrinth of familial secrets, Schlittenbauer's unresolved guilt, and the haunting image of a killer coldly inhabiting the aftermath. The 1922 Hinterkaifeck Massacre transcends its status as an unsolved crime, evolving into a cultural phenomenon that continues to provoke scholarly debate, inspire media adaptations, and fuel public fascination with the macabre. Forensic legacy. The investigation's catastrophic mishandling, failure to document fingerprints, destruction of the farm in 1923, and loss of critical evidence became a cautionary tale in German criminology. The case catalyzed reforms in forensic protocols, emphasizing systematic evidence preservation and centralized coordination between rural and urban police forces. Modern criminalists still reference Hinterkaifeck as a textbook example of how procedural negligence can doom even high-profile investigations. Cultural resonance. The murders infiltrated popular culture through books, documentaries, and podcasts, often framed as a pre-modern true crime saga. German television series like Tatort and international shows such as BuzzFeed Unsolved have dramatized the mystery, capitalizing on its eerie elements. The killer's days-long presence on the farm, reports of premonitory attic noises, and the victim's buried incestuous secret. Authors like Helmut Ortner, The Hinterkaifeck Murders, A German Village's Secret, and Tobias Bauer, The Crime That Could Not Be Solved, dissect the case through lenses of sociology and psychology, while novelist Andrea Maria Schenkel fictionalized It in Tannerd, exploring rural isolation and collective guilt. Scholarly debates. Academics analyze the murders as a microcosm of post-World War I, Germany's societal fractures. Historians note how the Gruber family's secrecy mirrored broader rural distrust of authority, while criminologists cite the case in discussions of familial homicide patterns and pseudo-communities where outsiders blend into victims' lives. Freudian interpretations speculate that the incestuous subtext and multi-generational violence reflect repressed trauma in Weimar-era society. Local mythology. In Weidhofen, Bavaria, the crime site remains a somber landmark. A wooden cross erected near the raised farm draws true crime pilgrims, while annual memorials underscore the tragedy's enduring grip on communal memory. Local folklore intertwines with the case. Legends persist of cursed ground and ghostly cries, echoing from the forest, amplifying its paranormal allure. Modern re-examinations. In 2007, Bavaria's State Criminal Police Office, LKA, reopened the case, concluding the killer likely acted from a personal, emotional motive tied to the Gruber family's hidden transgressions. Advances in DNA analysis raised hopes of breakthroughs, but degraded evidence stalled progress. In 2021, LiDAR drone surveys mapped the crime scene topography, attempting to corroborate witness accounts of the killer's escape route. While inconclusive, these efforts reflect the case's undiminished hold on investigative imagination. Enduring mystique. The massacre's unresolved nature, coupled with its themes of betrayal, hidden violence, and the banality of evil, resonates. In an era obsessed with true crime, online forums brim with crowdsourced theories, from Schlittenbauer's alleged descendants disputing his guilt to amateur sleuths dissecting the 1927 Midnight Confessor's identity. The case also fuels ethical debates. Critics argue its sensationalism exploits victims' trauma, while advocates defend its study as a window into historical justice failures. A century later, Hinterkaifeck endures as a dark mirror reflecting humanity's obsession with unsolved mysteries, the fragility of rural idols, and the haunting truth that some crimes, steeped in silence and shadow, may never fully surrender their secrets. A century later, the Hinterkaifeck Murders cling to our collective imagination like a shadow in a Bavarian forest, unshakable, enigmatic, and unnervingly human. Was it Schlittenbauer's simmering vendetta, Gruber-Gabriel's ghostly revenge, or a nameless wanderer who really knew how to overstay their murderous welcome? The truth? It's buried deeper than Victoria's secrets, and frankly, Detective Coffee Cup here, yes, you, binge-watching at 2 a.m., might never crack it. But hey, that's the thing about unsolved mysteries. They're the ultimate group project for armchair sleuths. So, if you've got a theory wilder than a poltergeist in the attic, don't leave us hanging. Smash that subscribe button, haunt the comments with your best guess. Gruber-Gabriel faked his death and became a polka maestro? Sure, why not? And keep the true crime candle burning. Until then, remember, Hinterkaifeck isn't just a lesson in forensic fails or rural Gothic horror. It's proof that sometimes the scariest stories don't end, they just wait for you to hit replay. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and maybe double-check your door locks tonight.